When Trump demanded a salute, he got defiance instead, a clash that echoed across history. Under the grey London sky, a young boy named James stood shivering in the early morning chill, his small hands clutching a Union Jack flag so tightly the fabric crinkled. It was May 13, 2025, and James, barely 8 years old, had begged his father, Thomas, to bring him to see the American president, Donald Trump, during his visit to the UK. To James, the Royal Guards were more than soldiers, they were legends, their red tunics and towering bearskin hats symbols of a history he'd read about in his school books, stories of queens and kings, battles and honor. "Will the Guards salute him, Dad?" James asked, his voice trembling with excitement, his breath puffing in the cold air. Thomas, a quiet man who worked as a groundskeeper at a local park, smiled down at his son, his own eyes curious but uncertain. "Let's see, lad," he whispered, ruffling James's hair. Neither could have known they were about to witness a moment that would ripple across the world, a clash of power, pride, and uncheckable tradition that would leave millions talking. This is the story of the day President Donald Trump demanded a salute from a British Royal Guard and was met with a silence that echoed louder than any command. Join us as we dive deep into this viral moment, peeling back its layers to explore its roots, its impact, and the timeless question it raises: what happens when the weight of one man's authority meets the strength of centuries-old duty? The scene was set at Buckingham Palace, where the air buzzed with anticipation. President Trump, in his second term, had just landed in London after a high-stakes visit to Saudi Arabia, where he'd been greeted with military salutes and lavish ceremonies. His trip to the UK was meant to cement alliances, a chance to project strength amid global tensions. But what unfolded that morning wasn't scripted diplomacy, it was a raw, unfiltered moment that captured the world's attention. According to eyewitnesses and unverified footage that spread like wildfire online, Trump approached a member of the Coldstream Guards, one of Britain's most storied ceremonial units, standing sentinel outside the palace. With a gesture that some described as expectant, others as commanding, Trump reportedly demanded a salute. The guard, trained to embody discipline, stood motionless, his eyes fixed forward, his rifle steady, not a muscle twitched. The silence that followed was profound, a stark reminder that even the most powerful leader in the world has limits. Social media exploded. Clips of the moment, grainy but gripping, racked up millions of views on X within hours. Posts ranged from biting humor, "The guard's silence was louder than Trump's entire campaign," to fierce debate, "disrespectful to a world leader," one user fumed. While another countered, "That guard just taught Trump what duty looks like." News outlets scrambled to cover the story, some calling it a diplomatic gaffe, others a humbling lesson in protocol. But the truth, as always, was more complex. No official statement came from Buckingham Palace, which maintained its customary silence, nor from the White House, which dismissed the incident as a non-issue. Yet the world couldn't look away. Why did this moment strike such a chord? To understand, we need to unravel the threads of history, culture, and personality that wove it together. Let's start with the incident itself. The details, pieced together from accounts on X and news reports from May 2025, paint a vivid picture. Trump, flanked by his entourage, had just finished a ceremonial exchange with British officials when he approached the guard. Fresh from Saudi Arabia, where he'd exchanged salutes with generals in a display of mutual respect, Trump may have expected a similar gesture. His demand, whether a verbal command or a pointed gesture, caught onlookers off guard. The Coldstream Guard, likely a young soldier trained to withstand far greater pressures, didn't flinch. His refusal wasn't defiance. It was adherence to a protocol etched in centuries of tradition. Royal Guards salute only their monarch, their regimental officers, or those explicitly authorized by their chain of command. Foreign leaders, no matter their stature, don't make the list. To the Guard, Trump's request was irrelevant. To Trump, it may have felt like a personal slight. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a collision of worlds. Donald Trump, a former reality TV star turned global power broker, thrives on spectacle. His presidency, both in his first term and his second, has been defined by bold gestures, handshakes that turn into tugs of war, salutes that spark headlines. The Royal Guard, by contrast, embodies a system where ego is irrelevant. Their stoicism isn't just for show. It's a living link to a monarchy that has weathered wars, revolutions, and time itself. The guard's silence wasn't a rebuke of Trump as a person, it was a testament to duty. But in the court of public opinion, it read like a checkmate. To grasp why this moment resonated, we need to step back and explore the history of salutes, both in the US and beyond. In America, the presidential salute is a relatively new tradition, and a controversial one. Before Ronald Reagan, presidents rarely saluted military personnel. As civilians, they're not required to. U.S. protocol, outlined in 36 U.S. Code Section 301, instructs civilians to place a hand over their heart during the national anthem, not salute. Reagan, a Hollywood icon with a flair for ceremony, changed that in the 1980s, regularly returning salutes to Marines guarding Marine One. It was a symbolic gesture, meant to honor the military, but it sparked debate. Critics argued it blurred the line between civilian and military roles. Supporters saw it as a mark of respect. Every president since has followed suit, to varying degrees, but Trump took it further. Trump's saluting habit has long been a lightning rod. In 2018, he faced backlash for saluting a North Korean general during a summit with Kim Jong-un, a move critics called inappropriate for a hostile nation's officer. In 2025, just days before the UK incident, he saluted Saudi generals in Riyadh, earning praise from some for diplomacy and scorn from others for bending protocol. Posts from the time reflect the divide. Trump's salutes show strength, one user wrote, while another quipped, he's saluting everyone but his own protocol team. Defenders argue his gestures are courteous, a nod to military tradition. Critics counter that they're performative, a civilian leader playing soldier. The Royal Guard incident flips this dynamic. Trump wasn't returning a salute, he was demanding one, a move that crossed a line from courtesy to command. Now, let's look at the British side. The Royal Guards, part of the Household Division, are no ordinary soldiers. Their origins trace back to the 17th century, when they were formed to protect the monarchy. Their ceremonial role guarding Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and other royal sites is steeped in ritual. Every movement, from the precise march to the unblinking stare, is drilled into them during grueling training. They're taught to endure taunts, tourists, and even physical discomfort without breaking focus. Saluting is sacred, reserved for those who hold authority within their chain of command. A foreign leader, even one as powerful as the U.S. president, doesn't qualify. This isn't snobbery, it's structure. The guard's silence was his job, executed with the precision of a clock striking midnight. But optics matter, and the optics were brutal. For a president who built his brand on commanding attention, the guard's refusal was a public humbling. X lit up with reactions, from memes of a stone-faced guard caption "Not today," made to earnest threads praising British tradition. One post summed it up: Trump thought he could demand respect. The guard showed him what it means to earn it. The incident became a Rorschach test. Trump's critics saw it as proof of his arrogance. His supporters called it a snub to America's leader. Both sides missed the nuance. This wasn't about Trump alone, but about the clash of two systems, each unyielding in its own way. Let's widen the lens. Diplomatic gestures have long been a minefield. In 2009, President Obama bowed to Saudi King Abdullah, a move Trump himself criticized as weak during his 2016 campaign. Yet Trump's own Saudi salute in 2025 drew similar flack for breaking protocol. In 1994, President Clinton was criticized for nearly bowing to Japan's Emperor Akihito, only to correct himself mid-gesture. These moments, small in isolation, reveal a truth. Leaders are judged not just by their words, but by their movements. A bow, a salute, a handshake that carry the weight of history and expectation. Trump's demand for a salute wasn't just a misstep. It was a gamble that backfired, exposing the limits of his approach in a world that doesn't bend to bravado. The public's reaction tells its own story. On X, the incident trended for days, peaking between May 21st and 24th, 2025, with millions of posts, likes, and shares. Late-night hosts had a field day. Jimmy Kimmel joked, Trump demanded a salute, and the guard gave him the world's loudest nothing. In the UK, tabloids ran headlines like "Guard stands firm," while US outlets debated whether it was a diplomatic embarrassment. Beyond the humor, though, the moment struck a deeper chord. It was a reminder that power isn't absolute, that even a president must navigate the rules of others' domains. For some, the guard's silence was a stand for principle over politics. For others, it was a missed chance to show respect. Both views hold truth, but neither captures the full picture. So, What does this moment mean? Let's think critically. The Royal Guard wasn't defying Trump, he was doing his job, rooted in a tradition that predates America itself. But the optics burned. For a man who thrives on spectacle, the Guard's silence was a quiet gut punch. It's tempting to frame it as a personal failing, but that's too simple. Trump's demand reflects a broader tension, the expectation that American power can reshape any stage. The Guard's response counters that expectation, not with hostility, but with indifference, a reminder that some institutions don't bend, no matter who's asking. This wasn't a snub or a stand, it was a mirror forcing us to question what we value, the loud demand for respect, or the quiet strength of duty. This incident also shines a light on diplomacy in a fractured world. Trump's defenders argue he was projecting strength, a leader and afraid to assert America's place. His critics say he misread the room, mistaking bluster for influence. The truth is likely a mix of both, a cultural miscalculation amplified by a global audience hungry for drama. Social media turned a fleeting moment into a morality play, but reality resists such tidy narratives. What's undeniable is the power of symbols. A salute, or its absence, can speak louder than a speech. For Trump, it was a rare moment of being upstaged. For the Guard, it was just another day of standing firm. Back in that London courtyard, as the crowd dispersed and the morning fog lifted, young James tugged at his father's sleeve. "Why didn't the Guard salute him, Dad?" he asked again, his voice softer now, tinged with confusion. Thomas knelt down, his knees sinking into the damp grass, and looked into his son's wide eyes. "Sometimes, James," he said, "duty means standing still, even when the world expects you to move." That Guard wasn't just guarding a palace, he was guarding something bigger, something that's lasted longer than any one person. It's about loyalty to what's true, not what's loud. James nodded slowly, his flag drooping in his hand, not fully grasping the words but feeling their weight like a seed planted deep. Years later, James would sit by a fire with his own children, telling the story of that day. He wouldn't talk about a president's demand or a viral moment. He'd talk about a Guard who stood like a statue, unmoved by the world's noise, a man who carried the past in his silence and showed a boy what it meant to hold fast. That memory, like the flag he kept folded in a drawer, would stay with him, a reminder that true strength isn't in the shout of power or the gesture of command, but in the quiet, unyielding roots that anchor us through time's storms. The Royal Guard's silence wasn't just a refusal, it was a beacon. In a world of chaos, and noise, and power, there's a profound courage in standing firm, in honoring what endures. For James, for us, it's a story of resilience, of tradition, and of the quiet courage that outlasts even the loudest demands. It's a call to reflect. What do we stand for? Power that commands, or duty that endures? What do you think? Was the Guard's silence a stand, or a snub, a lesson, or something more? Share your thoughts below, and join us for more stories that challenge us to see the world through a clearer lens.